Jeff Fuller back with you, Jay Fuller Interviews. Subscribe on YouTube, Jay Fuller Interviews. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, Jay Fuller Interviews. You can join the Facebook group there, Jay Fuller Interviews. Instagram and Twitter, Jay Fuller Interviews. And now on all the podcast channels, whether it's Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you can check us out, the Backfire Podcast with Jeff Fuller of Jay Fuller Interviews. And I certainly believe people's stories make our stories much better, more impactful, and definitely less ignorant if you'll take time and listen. One with a great story right now is Brandon Paquin. Brandon, how are you fixing those?
Yes, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for making the time. We're just going to talk a little bit of basketball as I love basketball. We hope to start the high school season shortly, but in the middle of COVID, it's definitely kind of crazy. For you, where did that love of basketball stem from?
Well, being from Indiana, I've been playing since I was 6 years old. I'm 42 now, I was around basketball my whole life. My dad was a really good athlete, but he didn't play basketball. He was a golf and baseball person. Just growing up in Indiana and being around it, and everybody had a basketball in their backyard. So I've been around it a long time, and if I couldn't play after high school, I still wanted to be involved, and I loved the game so much, I wanted to be around it.
Now, we mentioned off here, we're about the same size. I'm 5'10" on a good day if I wear my, elevator shoes.
Me too.
But there's something about loving a sport. But then I kind of laugh because some people say, well, you can become whatever you set your heart on or your mind on. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm ever going to play professionally because I'm just 5'9" and not super athletic. When you got to go to Indiana and it kind of changed from just loving playing to just being a fan, did that help mature you for what you're doing now? Or was there a sense in college of wishing you still could play at that level?
It did. I mean, I had the goals of, being in some kind of sports. So I have a degree in communications and sports marketing, and I kind of knew I wanted to go that path some way in basketball. Whether now, not necessarily a player development coach like I'm doing now, but whether it's sports marketing in basketball, working for a team, working for an NBA team in marketing, communications, wherever it was, because I wanted to get that background, I could go that avenue and still stay in basketball. And Indiana has top-notch programs in both of those. So I knew from a little kid, from 10 years old, I wanted to go to IU, and I did. And I got 2 degrees from there. So.
Very nice. And also off air, we mentioned that we have a mutual friend, that of Will Voigt, the former coach of Vermont Frost Thieves, but also from Cabot, Vermont. So a hometown hero in many ways. Where did you meet Will?
So I met Will. He worked in the ABA a little bit when I worked with the Indiana Alley Cats. He was also down here, the NBA, it's the G League now, the D League then. They had a tryout and workout here in Louisville, so I helped with that, and he was there also. So I've just known him over the years in the basketball circles. He's a really good coach. I'm not sure where he's actually exactly at now, just from over the years, I got to, whether it's on social media or whatnot, I get to know him pretty well.
It's pretty amazing about players like us that we were okay for our respective high schools, but never made it beyond. But the opportunity that a ball filled with air can lead to is just wonderful, at least in my opinion. You are now part of Worldwide Hoops Training.com. So I'm trying to pull that up now. And just talk to me about how you got this started at Worldwide Hoops.
So, I was doing it, in 2004, I kind of started doing training a little bit part-time when I lived in Indianapolis. And I was working in the ABA, it was the American Basketball Association, for the Indiana Alley Cats. There was a really, really good trainer up in Indy at the time. His name was Chris Thomas. He was a part of Nike. So I learned a lot under him. I would just work with him, a couple times a week doing some workouts here and there. And then I worked with the Alley Cats also. So once that whole league went under, basically the team in Indianapolis moved to Pikeville, Kentucky, and that's why I moved to Kentucky. So then they moved to CBA, then the Continental Basketball Association, and that league also went under in 2008. So I worked with them. And then when I moved down to Louisville, after that league went under, I wanted to do it full time. And then in 2010, I met Gannon Baker, who's a world-renowned skills trainer. So, a lot of people know who Gannon is. So I got to work with him a lot. I met him in a clinic down here in Louisville. and basically just kind of took off from there. Kept in touch with them, did some clinics in Indiana, Ohio when he was around the area. Once that kind of took off, and then I went full go at it. And I wanted to, doing the Worldwide Hoops name and the logo and things, I really wanted to get, kind of like what Gannon was doing, was getting out and trying to build up a culture around basketball.
Yeah.
Doing this almost 17 years now, I've been to 45 states through training and through working in different leagues. I've been to Puerto Rico. I was there in 2013. I was in Canada, and I was just recently in Ireland for 3 weeks last August.
And Brandon, you're a great follow on Instagram, Paquin20, Paquin20. And one of the reasons is because you have so many different pictures and videos of kids and people being involved. Something that you have coming up is the clinic with the fathers and sons, I believe.
Right.
How does that look with COVID? How have you had to adjust or pivot to change just doing the skill development during this pandemic?
Right. It's been tough. I was shut down from March until June, basically. June, we kind of, really, took it slow, 2 or 3 in a group at a time. I wore face masks and things, cleaned all the balls, didn't have the parents in the gyms. It's been tough. Things in the summer kind of lightened up a little bit. Now they're going back. It doesn't seem like the high schools here in Kentucky are going to start to January 4th now. So that's going to, and the kids will still want to work on their game when they can't practice. So basically I'm just limiting the number of people in the gym. I have a face mask and we wash and disinfect all the balls. So, it's been tough, but at the same time, kids want to still work on their game. And, so I gotta still run a business also.
Yeah.
But that's not the most important part. I want the kids to be safe and the parents want their kids to be safe. But, it's been challenging at times.
Something I certainly appreciate about yourself as well as Gannon is the fact that you bring in more than just basketball. It truly is talking about life skills. How have you addressed some of the depression or especially disappointment these kids are going through with not being able to play, whether it's AAU or summer leagues or now with the high school season being pushed back? How are you speaking with these kids that are maybe a little bit more mentally fragile than before?
Yeah, like I said, it's been just obviously everybody in this whole year's been tough. But the main thing about kids in Indiana, where I work, in Kentucky also, they love basketball. So if they can just get in the gym for an hour or two, a couple times a week while everything's going on, it's going to distract them from everything else for an hour or two, and it's going to make them happy and put a smile on their face. They're still getting the work ethic in and the hard work and just working towards a goal of getting better. So even though, if they're only in the gym with me a couple times a week, like I said, the kids work hard, they have a smile on their face, and then that's important. To take them away kind of what's going on in the world, and just, concentrate on basketball for a couple hours a week.
Yeah, I can't remember who told me. It was somebody I interviewed earlier this year, and they just said that some kids need to realize they have a great opportunity to develop their individual skills during this time,
Right.
where others are just lamenting that they can't play on their team or travel or go to these tournaments. Can you just share the importance for kids to really take that responsibility and develop their game on their own when it's certainly a different time?
Yeah, and that's what I preach to, all the kids I work with. If you're only in the gym once or twice a week with me for an hour, what are you doing those other 5 days? And I tell kids, you don't have to be in the gym for 4 or 5 hours a day, but it's something every day, whether it's in your backyard, your garage, with a buddy or with a friend at the YMCA. You got to work on your game, ball handling for 10 minutes, jumping rope, which I love kids that jump rope. It's a good, for footwork and conditioning, working on your shot, working on your form. It's something every day. And I understand kids are in other different sports, but, basketball is a thing where you got to work on your skills. If you don't have the skills, your athleticism can only take you so far.
Oh, that's the truth. Brandon Paquin makes some time. WorldwideHoopstraining.com. WorldwideHoopstraining.com. Something that I really appreciate about basketball, and that's probably because I played that versus other team sports, is that sense of community, camaraderie. Can you just talk about the importance of kids playing different sports, but also understanding their roles in meaning I played soccer, I could run around, but it was a different role than on the basketball
Right.
team. But it helped me to really show some empathy for some of the role players on the basketball team. How important is it that kids understand those things through sports?
It's really important. Like I said, I have a lot of kids that play other sports, whether it's baseball or football, soccer's a lot of the kids, my younger kids I work with play soccer. That's good. That's good for being on a team. It's good conditioning, teaches you footwork in soccer. But like I said, it's there's a lot of things involved with other sports that are I want to create leaders. Period. Whether it's you walking down the street, whether it's you in the gym on a team, whether it's working at a job later on in life. That's the whole point. I just don't want, you can be on the team and that's great, but I want you to be a leader on the team no matter what your role is. Kids can make teams that way. A lot of kids I work with, whether they're fourth, fifth, or sixth grade, or just coming up playing basketball, if they get those attributes and skills, not basketball skills necessarily, but those kind of skills younger, and you preach those younger, it's just going to help them later in life.
Yeah, I've heard it said that leaders do not consider themselves leading because they're too busy learning. I know Gannon has
Exactly.
quite the basketball outreach. Who are you learning from, and what are some things that you've learned lately about being a basketball skills trainer?
So, like I said, everybody needs a mentor. And I preach this to my kids and the younger skills coaches coming up that I know. You got to learn from somebody. You got to see what their trials and tribulations were. And some of obviously you want to be a good player development coach, but it's tough. It's a tough having your own business. So I learned a lot from Gannon Baker. Alan Stein is a really good, a good friend of mine, and I've read his book. I'm not sure if you know who Alan Stein is.
Raise Your Game. Good book.
Yes. So I talk to him all the time, and he gives me, just things he's doing in his life, because he went from, being a sports performance coach and working with the best players in the world like Gannon to being a keynote speaker now.
Yeah.
So he tells me all the time, it's just the things to do and to look at. But like I said, and Chris Thomas was another person, in Indianapolis, who's a great skills coach, worked with Nike a lot. He's the one that I've learned from in the beginning. So without him, I probably wouldn't be doing this. And it takes a lot, you really got to work hard at it. You got to, pay attention to details, and having your own business is hard. There's a lot of things in life you're not going to want to do, but you gotta put in the money to make the money. Also on the business side of it.
Yeah.
So, but those two or three guys I've really learned a lot from, and I wouldn't be where I am today without those guys.
That's really good. And breaking it down a little bit more, just taking it maybe to a personal level for you, I know that some young players, especially in high school, JV, or varsity, they try to be that emotional leader, vocal leader, but sometimes just as we're human, we are down at times too. How do you really make it part of your character instead of just being more of a motivational speaker?
Right. So empathy is important. You got to understand what the kid is going through. And every kid and every family is different. I try to teach the kids, things are going to be hard. Life isn't easy, especially now. You gotta, see what happens and adjust to it. A lot of kids get frustrated in basketball. Something bad happens and they just pack it in. And I try to tell kids that you're going to miss shots and mishandle the ball all the time. Every time I want you to come in, I just want you to have a good attitude and effort. Everything else is fixable. Your ball handling is fixable. If your shot's kind of broken, that's fixable. But you always got to have a good attitude and good effort coming in, and everything else we can fix.
So I've tried during practice to share with our players that if you aren't messing up, you aren't trying hard enough. In your skills development, in the different trainings that you put on, do you see that students will hold back a little bit because of that peer pressure of not wanting to make a mistake?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I want them to get out of their comfort zone. And I told my girls groups this is like this, they're going hard, but they can go harder.
Yeah.
And they're so afraid of making mistakes because they think I'm going to yell at them. And again, I'm not going to yell at them because, that's not why they're there. They're there to get better and to make mistakes. They got so much pressure now from, your coaches yelling at you, the assistants, getting on, and then you got the parents in the stands, and then you got the other parents in the stands. So there's so much evolved, everything's involved around them. There's so much pressure on kids these days. The NBA's draft is tonight.
Yeah.
So there's so much pressure on all these kids from everywhere, from, if they're really good, they're a top 5 recruit, and then they're being looked at all the time. They're not used to that. They're getting ranked, and I got a different opinion on rankings. So, but there's just so much pressure around them. Sometimes sometimes you just need to get in the gym and get away from that.
Brandon, share with me a little bit on your Instagram page. There's a girl that played at Indiana. Now I believe she's playing overseas. And I've heard it said that, the first 2 years of college, your body develops. The last 2 years of college, your mind develops.
Right.
How do you approach teaching the game differently to a older athlete?
So Tyra Buss, she was an amazing player. She played it. She was probably all-time leading scorer of women in Illinois. She scored 4,800 points in high school. She's an all-time women's scorer at IU. She's not, you think she'd be 6'6", 6'5", but she's 5'6", 5'7", and was just had a really, really good work ethic. She went into IU, and she played well. She was leading scorer of the Big Ten 1 year, I believe. And then she, after her senior year, she became the all-time leading scorer at IU. Those kind of players, you just got to basically get them in the gym. And they work hard. They work hard, unlike, some of the middle school and high school kids I work with, and everything doesn't necessarily come easy to them, but they put in that so much work where you don't have to get on them about stuff. Yep. Go hard in this drill or go hard in this spot. Like I said, when I worked with Eric Gordon in 2012, everything was so easy for him because, he came in and he just worked. Now he was coming in off an injury. This is when he was with the Pelicans. He was in Louisville for a weekend. We did, a couple workouts, and it was just amazing to work with somebody that physical, 6'4", 210 pounds. He just, everything was full go, from the warm up to the end when we're working on free throws at the end. And that's what separates, and it's so much, basketball IQ now. He knew where, what spots to be in, where to go. So, that's in Tyra was the same way. Her basketball mind was so good. I wouldn't have to tell her to go to this spot or go there. She already knew where to go.
So for Tyra, 4,800 points, she's got to ice down that shoulder. That's
right.
That's a lot of points.
And she scored 2,300 points in college. So
how important is the aspect of taking care of your body, stretching, massages? I actually spoke with Jim Sweeney, who had the ESPN documentary about him playing for the Mob. He said he's never stretched and he's never had an injury. I spoke with somebody else. They played at Notre Dame, Kyle McElhinney. And he said that without the yoga and massages and icing, he doesn't think he would have survived his career when he played overseas. Right. Some athletes, it seems as though they don't need to stretch as much, but how dangerous is that?
I think it's very, like I said, I do a dynamic warm-up 5 to 8 minutes before our workouts, every single workout, and it's dynamic. So that means cutting, skipping, high knees, butt kicks, karaoke. Because it's important. The static stretching they need to do after. And I tell the kids, like, it'd be like taking a rubber band and putting that in a refrigerator or the freezer, and after 10 minutes trying to stretch it. That's what your muscles are like when you walk in the gym. And people get hurt all the time for not stretching their right way. All the top elite athletes do it. LeBron does it. They all do it, and they're so much more flexible that way. LeBron's 6'8", 240, but he's really, really flexible because he does all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now he's got resources, and spending $1 million on nutrition, he can do that. Not everybody has those resources, but once you get to college, you have those. But you can't take a day off from those. Whether it's those high school and college kids doing an ice bath after, you're just going to recover quicker.
Yeah. And that's being here in Vermont or in the Northeast. We've heard a lot about pliability over the last few years with Tom Brady. Hey, right. Instagram, it's .3 hoops. .3 hoops. Share a little bit about this.
So .3 hoops is a all basketball gear. They make shorts, they make shirts. And it's different because they have the material where if your hands are sweaty, let's say on your shorts, you can wipe off your hands on this material and it's going to dry your hands. And, I'm wearing a shirt right now and they've been great. I talk to them all the time, but it's all basketball gear. Like I said, they call alpha trainers. So they have myself and probably 15 to 20 other trainers around the country that work with them. And we'll be doing, we do clinics together. As I mentioned, we were down in Atlanta, the 2013 Final Four. We did clinics with the kids in the Atlanta inner city. They're a great community. They work with the Atlanta Hawks also because they're based in Atlanta. Yeah. They have a great community outreach, and they do some great things and great community work there in Atlanta.
Brandon, thank you so much for making the time. A couple more questions, then we'll get you out. But how can people get involved, whether it's by checking out your website, worldwidehoopstraining.com, or if somebody's 5'10", they aren't going to play at high school, how can they look to really help other kids by using the game of basketball?
Yeah, so, anybody can get a hold of me, through worldwidehoopstraining.com. My email and my phone number's on there. They can send me messages. I get messages all the time on all the social media outlets, whether it's, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I have all those, and you can direct message me, or you can direct message, or you can email me also.
Hey, so talking basketball, I assume that you're a Pacers fan. Is that correct?
I'm a huge Pacers fan. Yes. So we're trying to keep Oladipo there, and he's an Indiana guy too. So I don't know. That doesn't look good right now for him.
So with Victor, when he was drafted by the Orlando Magic, I thought it was a good pickup, but he's certainly become a better player than when he was a rookie. Was that injuries, or why do you think it took him a little bit more time to develop versus other players?
Well, he's so athletic. When he got to IU, he couldn't do much. He wasn't a really good shooter. His ball handling was bad. And he was one of those guys that worked his butt off in the offseason. So he really took his game level up so many notches from his freshman year at IU to his junior year after he left, and he was a third pick in the draft that year. So he was so athletic, and then he got hurt, the last year and a half or so, and kind of came back. But like I said, once those huge contracts come out again, and you're wanted by so many teams now, it's tough to stay in the same spot all the time.
So with the NBA draft tonight at the time of this recording, who do you like? I love basketball, but you certainly see players during March Madness, or you hear about players overseas. Have you been caught up on who might go in the first round?
Yeah, the kid from Georgia is really good. LaMelo Ball. Is it LaMelo?
Yeah.
He's going to go the first couple spots. He's a tricky one, though, because, he didn't have much of a high school career, went overseas and involved with that kind of stuff. And but he's 6'7" point guard. I know there's a kid from Europe that's really good. It'll be an interesting draft. I think they're saying this might be down a little bit from years past. But there's still going to be really good picks. There's always a really good outlier kind of in the second round. So it'll be interesting to see, and kind of the whole, I don't know if they're doing Zoom with it or, something like that. So I guess we'll see that way too. I know it's not going to be in New York City and they're going to have thousands of people there like they usually do.
Yeah, the NFL draft worked out well. It'll be interesting what they do tonight. Golden State Warriors, would you trade that number 2 pick?
I'm not sure. Probably not. They got they got Curry coming back and Klay Thompson coming back, and they have Wiggins there. So they're gonna be really good. So they were pretty bad last year, and that's not going to be the case this year. I mean, they're going to be back. It might take them a while to get back, just because they might be a little bit rusty. But after that, I mean, those guys are amazing. Those two are the best. And I always, when I always work on my shooting in with the kids, I always revert that back to Klay Thompson, because the way he shoots, his catch and shoot, his form, his mechanics, it's amazing. It's the best. It's one of the best I've ever seen, and it's the best in the game today, I think. Other than Ray Allen,
I was going to.
He was one of my favorite players ever.
So many questions, and we have so little time, but I want to ask a couple things. When I'll try to get in the screen. When Steph Curry shoots, he seems to put his index finger on his thumb when he shoots.
Right.
That to me was new. How does that help his shot, or is that just?
Well, that's one of those things he might have always done, and they just didn't want to change it. I mean, he's one of those unorthodox. He can shoot from 35 feet off 1 foot, and I don't recommend kids shooting that way. But he's just one of those, like I said, outliers that can do that. Himself, and there's maybe a couple others. The kid from the Hawks. Oh, what's his name? Really good shooter from the Hawks. He can do that. But like I said, the majority of the other great shooters are always squared up. They got good feet. They're wide with the base. But he's just one of those that can do that. It's just there's going to be one or two of those few guys that can shoot with off 1 foot or not squared up totally. It's going to hit shots.
So, Brandon, let me ask you this question, and then I'll tell you why I ask it. If you could only choose one player, Reggie Miller or Ray Allen, who would you take?
Ray Allen all day. And I found that shocking because Reggie was on the Pacers, and I loved the Pacers back then too. But Ray Allen was one of my all-time leading score, not all-time leading scorers, but players. Yeah. He was so athletic back, when he was with the Bucks, and then he was obviously a great shooter. But he didn't have to do that so much in his later years. Yeah. But they always said he would take a cab 3 hours before the game on the road, to the arena, and he'd get there 3 hours early to get shots up. And I love that.
Ray Allen, he was one of my favorite players ever, especially when he played for the Celtics. It was so much fun just watching him catch and shoot and do what he did. So, Brandon, we have a couple more questions, then we'll get you out.
Okay.
If you're coaching young athletes, and I'm saying, 8th grade, 9th grade, so maybe JV level, and they look like they have promise. How much, and I know it depends on state, there's all these qualifiers, but are you teaching kids to shoot more or to dribble more?
So many kids over dribble anymore. You'll see it in games, you'll see it in AAU. I was a really good shooter, so I can handle the ball, but I want kids to be good shooters. And I always tell kids, you're going to play one of two ways: if you can defend and if you can shoot.
Yeah.
The shooting aspect is important to me. Like I'm doing I did my off-season stuff. Now I'm kind of in my preseason stuff, leading up to the season, and we're working a lot on our shot. Where kids are going to get shots in games. Yeah. I'm one of those people that is, kind of like Gannon and Sonny, Drew Hanlon's of the world. I'm all in game situation stuff. What are you going to be doing in a game? I don't use cones very much. I don't use chairs. I'm still at 42. I'm still pretty good shape. So I can run around with the kids quite a bit. So I always defend kids. I'm always interactive, and anything a kid needs to be shown, I can show them how to do it. But the shot's the most important aspect, I think, of a kid coming up. If you can shoot, you're going to play.
Well, that's why I love Klay Thompson. As you mentioned before, Reggie Miller was so much fun because he utilized screens so well. And then Ray Allen, I just loved watching him play. This is not a get you question. You actually just mentioned it. But some trainers I've seen get a little bit too gimmicky, maybe.
Yep. Right.
Why is that? Is that because it draws the attention of people? Like, oh, I've never seen that before. But sometimes it really doesn't translate to player development. Where do you find that balance?
Yeah, so that's a lot of people. The industry is so watered down. just because so many people, if you're a former, a lot of former players, don't want to go and get in that job world. So they want to be skills strangers. And I'm not saying they can't be good. There's a lot of good former players that are good skills coaches, but, coaching and playing is the total opposite end of the spectrum. A lot of the great coaches in the world were good role players. They could sit back and they could see what's going on in the game. That's kind of like training. So many people are doing it for Instagram, and it's going to catch a parent's eye.
Yeah.
If I got a mat on the floor and there's different colors on it, and doing different things, and doing 10 different moves into a step back. I'm one of those people that James Harden wasn't doing that in middle school and high school. He wasn't doing his step back. So there's no point to put a video of him, showing him doing a step back and then trying to do it with an 8-year-old.
Right.
The 8-year-old needs to stick to the basics. And that's what I've done. And that's what I've learned from, the people that I've learned from over the years.
And sometimes the 8-year-old does not have the coordination, so they end up tripping and falling.
Exactly.
Messes up the ball handling drill to begin with. So shout out to Chucky Brown. I love Chucky Brown.
Yes.
Great review. I understand he's a mutual friend of yours, but
yes.
Great guy. So quick shout out to him.
Yes.
Final question I have for you. It's kind of a 2-part question. I stole the first part from Hernando Planos. He has a beacon.
He's a good friend of mine.
He's excellent.
He knows everybody.
He does. He really does. But he shared at the end of his podcast, if or when the feature film is made about your life, who plays you in that feature film?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like a former actor right now?
Yeah, or anybody. So I always say, because we look so much alike, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, I think because we look so much alike that he would play me, said laughingly, tongue in cheek. But who plays you in the feature film?
Oh, wow. Well, a lot of people say, I don't know if you know who this is. His name's Noah Weil, and he used to be in ER. Do you know who Noah Weil is?
Yeah.
A lot of people think I look like him. And some people think I've looked like Adam Levine before in my younger years.
Okay.
But my favorite actor, is Matthew McConaughey and Tom Cruise. So I would honestly probably take Matthew McConaughey, not saying I look like him, but I would put him because he's been in sports stuff before. So he was in Marshall. It was a really good movie. So I would take him probably and put him, involved in something in basketball.
And then the second part to the question is, who plays your love interest in that said movie? And my wife knows I'm going to say Halle Berry, and she just shakes her head. She tells me that she would want Denzel Washington playing her love interest. So
I like those two.
But who plays your love interest in that film about your life?
I used to be a huge Meg Ryan fan. So maybe her. And obviously she was with John Mellencamp at one time. John Mellencamp's from Indiana. So, but let's go with Meg Ryan.
Lots of connections. Hey, Brandon, thank you so much for making the time. We wish you all the best and continued success at what you're doing.
All right. Thank you for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And again, my name is Jeff Fuller, Jay Fuller Interviews. You can find that on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're all over. And Brandon Paquin, worldwidehoopstraining.com, worldwidehoopstraining.com. Take the time and make the time to listen to someone's story, because it will make yours much better, more impactful, and certainly less ignorant. Thanks all.